Hello everybody and welcome to this live walkthrough of Elementor beta version 3.14. My name is Ash and I'm the Global Community Content Manager here at Elementor, and today I'm going to walk you through all of the new features and improvements with this latest beta version. If you have any questions about today's live walkthrough or beta 3.14 in general, please feel free to ask in the chat, where my colleague Nicholas will be more than happy to assist you. Now, before I begin, I would like to say a massive happy birthday to Elementor. Today is Elementor's 7th birthday, if you can believe it. And to celebrate this, you can find a whole host of great deals over at elementor.com. So be sure to check those out after this live stream, of course. Now, before we begin, as always, this is a beta version of Elementor and should not be used on production websites. Its purpose is for testing only, and if you would like to contribute your feedback to this version, please head on over to the official GitHub post, and you'll find the link for that in this live stream's description. So let's take a look at what we're going to see today. Just bear with me while I change my screens. Okay. So first of all, we're going to check out the new nested carousel. So a great addition to our already expansive carousel collection of widgets. The new nested carousel gives you complete design freedom to create any type of carousel. So we're really excited to see how creative people get with this one for sure. Afterwards, we'll explore the static item option in the loop grid. Now, this enables you to inject anything that you like into a loop grid, and you can specify the position that it's shown. So this could be a simple static image for something like an advert, or something a little bit more complex. Really, the only limitations here are your imagination. So definitely explore that one. Next up, we'll check out the new global style preview, which is a fantastic addition, and it allows you to manage your global colors and fonts with ease. Afterwards, we'll go through many of the UI and UX improvements, many of which you'll also notice I'm using as I do these demonstrations. I'll try and highlight them as and when I get to them. We'll then take a look at the many new additions to the styling options within several of our widgets. So I won't list them all right now. I'll go through them all in a little bit more detail shortly. There's also been a significant update with the loop carousel widget. And this is especially important if you've used this in the past and you've applied custom CSS to maybe style the navigation or the pagination. So again, I will go through this in more detail later on, but if you are somebody that has done that in the past, this is definitely something you're going to want to pay attention to. And finally, we're going to explore what performance and accessibility, what improvements have been made to the performance and accessibility as well. So just give me 2 seconds, guys. And I'm just going to get organized again with my screens. Okay. And as I mentioned, Nicholas is in the chat, so do feel free to ask questions. I won't be able to keep an eye on that myself because I'll be busy with the demonstration, but do ask questions. Okay, so beta, if you're not too sure how to enable the beta versions of Elementor, this is how you do it. The first thing you're going to do is in the WordPress dashboard, you're going to navigate your way to Elementor and then Tools. Once you're here, you're going to select the version control tab and then scroll down to the bottom where you see this become a beta tester option here. Now I have this enabled, okay, but by default, this will be disabled. So if you'd like to take part in this, okay, you're going to switch it to enabled and then save your changes. And again, do not use this on a production website. This is for testing. So at least in a staging environment or, you know, a local copy of WordPress like what I'm using here. Once you have that enabled, okay, you're going to want to head to the updates area. And from here, you may need to refresh your screen. So I'm not going to refresh because I've already got this installed. But if you're not seeing the plugin updates here, just refresh your screen and then they should show for you. And then you can update to the beta versions of the plugin. And then once you've done that, it should look something like this. So you can see I've got Elementor and Elementor Pro installed, and the versions are 3.14 beta 2 and 3.14 beta 2 just there. Okay, and that is how you access the beta versions of Elementor. Now, the first thing we're going to take a look at is the new nested carousel. So this is going to allow you to produce an infinite number of designs, which is incredibly exciting. So let's open up a page and let's check it out. So I'm just going to open up the home page here. Okay, so let's. I've just installed one of the kits here. Okay, it's this this travel kit, nice and clean design. This is what we're going to be working with today. I'm just going to scroll to the bottom, so we've got an empty section here, and then I'm going to drop in an empty container. And I have saved this as default, so you can see there's a bit of padding around the edge, and it's set to column, etc. Okay, just to speed this up. Now, in the Elements panel, we are going to search for Carousel. Now, I've been calling this nested carousel, okay, but as you'll see, the widget is named just Carousel. So this is the new widget that you see at the bottom here, and this is the one we're going to drop in to our empty container. Now, when we do this, you can see that we have 3 empty sections. Let's explore the structure of this first of all. So over in the structure panel, you can see our new carousel widget. And if I expand this, you can see that we have slide 1, slide 2, and slide 3. Now, these are just empty containers. Okay, so these are ready for us to start populating. But if you would like to make any amendments to that container, you can do so. And if you've been using Flexbox containers for a little while now, this is all going to be very familiar to you. You can even change it to the grid if you would like to. We're going to leave this as Flexbox for this demonstration. But you're going to see all of the same options that you would expect to see because it is just a container. There's nothing fancy about it. Okay, it's the exact same container that you would expect to see. But if you need to add more containers, you can, of course, drop them in by using the plus icon here, or you can grab a container from the Elements panel and drop it in like so. Okay, I'm actually going to delete that because I don't need an extra one. But yeah, this is it. This is the freedom we have now. So just an empty container. So we can now start to add widgets in here. So we could add anything we like. Let's just add some random stuff in here. So we'll drop an image in first of all, and let's perhaps choose a slightly more appealing image. Let's choose this one here. And then we could add a heading like so. Oh, I've actually missed. There we go. And I think we need to make that text a little bit smaller. Oh. So let's just amend that to the secondary like so. And then, yeah, we could add some text like this. Okay, I'm not going to do anything too crazy here. I just want to show you how this works. And that is our first slide populated. So again, if we look over in the structure section here, you can see we've got our carousel widget. And then inside our slide 1, we've got the image, heading, and text. And I can minimize that. And if I open up slide 2, you can see that it's empty. And then the same for slide 3. So what we can do now is, yeah, anything we like, really. So if we jump over to the Layouts tab, oh, actually, we need to select the carousel itself. I'm going to delete these 2 slides, and then I'm just going to duplicate this one just a few times so we can kind of see how this works. And we've now turned that one container into a carousel. And if I just hide the panel, you can see that we've got 1, 2, 3, and where are we? We can't see the navigation arrows. It's because they're kind of hidden, but there's a navigation arrow here. And if I click this, it slides there. And if I click back, it slides back. Or I can use the pagination at the bottom there. Now, that's a super simple example. But the beauty with this is we're not restricted to the same design or layout in each container. So for this middle one, for example, I could remove the image. And then I could just say, I just want text there. So let's maybe center that text like so. And then maybe I want it centered in the middle there as well. So if I select the actual carousel itself, you'll see that we have an equal heights option, which is set to 1, which is great. So now I can select the container that's holding this text, okay, and then align it to the center like so. So slide 1 is this design, slide 2 is this design, slide 3 is this design, and so on and so on and so on. So you can see that we've got complete design flexibility here, which is great. Now let's go over some of the carousel options. And if you've used any of the carousels in Elementor before, a lot of this is going to be very, very familiar to you. So in the content tab, first of all, we have the ability to say how many slides we would like on display. By default, as you can see, it's set to 3, but we could say that we would only like to show 2. And then we could also say slides on scroll, which is default set to 1. We could say that we would like that to be set to 2. And if I minimize the panel here and use the navigation, you can see that it jumped 2 slides there. I'm going to set these back to default for the time being. And as I already explained, we have an equal heights option, which is incredibly helpful if you want to do things like center the text like I did there. We then have these settings. And again, these options are all going to be incredibly familiar to you if you've used any type of carousel, in Elementor before. So we have autoplay options. We can set the scroll speed, which by default is 5,000 milliseconds, which equates to 5 seconds. So if you only wanted it to be 1 second, you would set it to 1,000. We can say if we would like it to pause on hover, pause on interaction, whether it's going to be an infinite scroll or not. We can then say how long the transition should be. And we can finally state whether we would like it to scroll left or scroll right. So lots and lots of options there. We then have our navigation options. So these are the arrows that you can't see very well. I'm going to change the color of those shortly. But we can turn them off if we don't want to use them. Okay, but if we do want to use them, we can choose an icon from the icon library. So any icon from the icon library built into Elementor. We can upload our own custom SVG icon if we so wish, or we can turn them off completely. We then have pagination, and by default, this is set to dots, which you can see at the bottom here. All right, but we also have the standard fraction, progress, or we can switch them off if we would like to as well. So I've just turned those off there. Now over in the style tab, okay, we can adjust all of the settings here. So by default, the gap between the slides is going to be set to 10, but if we want to make it bigger, we can just use the slider, or we can enter an exact amount like so. We can add background to the carousel like so. We can also add a border if we would like to. And with the border selected, we can choose the width and the radius, etc. And then finally, we can add some padding around each of the carousel items if we would like to. And if you have navigation or pagination enabled, it will also show up in the style tab here as well, where we can amend the size, okay, like this. We can change the color, and this is a little bit easier to see now. We can also say if we would like it to be inside or outside, like this. And you'll notice that pagination is not showing, and that's because I turned it off here. But if I enable it and go back to the style tab, it then shows up for me and allows me to amend the carousel, the pagination dots, however I would like to. So that concludes the nested carousel. Not the most inspiring design, I know, but hopefully this gave you a good overview of what is possible with that. So we're really excited to see what designs and layouts you can all come up with. But yeah, we just have empty containers. And as we all know, with an empty container, the design possibilities are endless. So yeah, have some fun with the new nested carousel for sure. Now I'm going to get rid of this. So I'm ready for the next demonstration, which is for, we can now have the ability to add a static item, okay, into a loop grid. So I'm going to scroll to the top of the page here, and I'm going to just give you a sneak peek into one of the UI improvements. And if we hover over the home link here with the drop down arrow, you'll see that we have this add new page option here. And if I click this, like so, it's going to prompt me to save the changes that I've made so far if I've forgotten to do so. And then it's going to load a new page for me like so. And I'm not sure if you noticed that, and we'll do this again so that you can see it, but actually the top bar didn't go anywhere there. The only thing that happened was the canvas reloaded, which is amazing. So this has all been rebuilt with React, and it's, you know, this long phase of us improving the top bar and the UI and all this kind of stuff. And this is just making our workflow even smoother. So the top bar stayed exactly where it was, and it was just the canvas, so this section here, that actually reloaded and created the new page for us. Now, we don't like the look of this page. Okay, so the first thing we're going to want to do is click onto the page settings and then rename this. So let's rename this something like, we'll call it something relevant. So static item. So, and there we go. So the first thing we're going to do is just drop in an empty container. And then in the elements panel, we're going to search for the loop grid and drop this in. Now, I've got a few blog posts set up on this website, okay, all of which you can see here. And you can also see that I've already created a loop template. So this loop template is pulling through the featured image, the post title, the first 20 characters of the excerpt, first 20 words, sorry, and then a link for the user to keep reading. Now, we have this new ability to inject a static item, which is incredibly exciting. And if I click onto the loop grid, so making sure that I've got the loop grid selected here, we have this option, apply an alternate template. Okay, this isn't brand new anymore. We've already explored this in previous videos. Okay, this is where we are able to inject an alternate template. So if, for example, I wanted the second item to have the keep reading button on top, but all other items to have the keep reading button on the bottom, this is where I would create and specify that. So if I click onto this alternate template, you'll see that there's an option here to create a new template. Okay, now I've already gone ahead and created just a static image template to use here as the demonstration. So I'm going to search for that now, but if you haven't, you can click the create new template button. It will open the template editor in a new tab. So you will remain on this page and it will open a new tab. And from there, you can then create your new template. But I've got this birthday sale template here. So this is what I'm going to select. And with it selected, you'll see that nothing changes. Okay, we've got a little bit of work to do before this actually shows. Okay, so if I scroll down now, we see this new option here called static item position. And by default, it's switched off, which is why we're not seeing anything. So the first thing we're going to do is switch it on. And then once it's switched on, we then need to tell Elementor where we would like this static image to appear in our grid. So we have 6 posts here. So we have 6 available slots. I would like it to appear in the second slot here. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to type 2 into the box here. And then as you can see, our birthday sale advert appears. Let me just hide the panel in the second item. So the grid is working as expected, okay? It's pulling through dynamically our most recent posts, okay? So we've got our first post here, our second post here, okay? But what we've done is we've interrupted that flow and we've told Elementor we want to display this image in this grid. So let's just bring the panel back in. But we've got lots more control here. So apply once is switched on by default, but if I wanted that to appear every second item, okay, I would turn that off. And then as you can see, that advert now appears, okay, every other post. That doesn't quite work for our design. We do just want it to appear once. So we'll switch that back. And then we have the same control here like we do with the alternate templates, in that we can set the column span. And again, by default, it's set to 1, but we can say that we would like this to span 2 columns. And admittedly, the ratios of this image and the post, they don't quite work, but hopefully you'll get the gist of exactly what's possible with this new ability to inject static items. And I have just used an image here because I felt like an advert was a good kind of example of maybe a time where you would want to inject something like this into a post grid. But the possibilities are endless. You know, you can drop any widget into that template. There's no limitations there. It could be a contact form. It could be a video. It could be absolutely anything. So get creative and just know that you now have the flexibility to actually inject anything you like into your grids and yeah, create the exact website that you want to create. So there we go. Let's save this, because we may come back to it later on. Okay, and now once that's saved, so the next thing we're going to take a look at is the global style preview, and this is incredibly exciting. So if I jump over into my site settings, like so, we have our design system at the top here. So in the very first items, and we have our global colors and our global fonts. Now, hopefully when you're setting your websites up, this is something you're going through. You're setting your global colors and your global fonts. But when we select this now, you'll see that the page actually reloads. And we don't just see them on the left-hand side here anymore. We see this new area over on the right. Now, the first section is reserved for global colors, and you'll see some navigation at the top here. The second section is reserved for global fonts. So not only do we have the ability to set global colors and fonts, which is a fantastic option anyway, but we've got this visual representation now of what those colors are, because I mean, these squares over here are quite small. Sometimes it's a lot easier to see something in a much bigger context, especially when it comes to things like font sizes. So we can see our primary, our secondary, our body, and our accent. And then we also have our custom fonts there as well. And you'll notice that we also have our custom colors. Hopefully you notice as I hovered over these appear to be a clickable link. So what happens when we click one of those? Well, let me show you. So if I click onto this primary one here, you'll notice that it jumps straight over into the color picker here. So we don't need to just select these parts here to amend our color now. We can be anywhere on this page. We can click the secondary font here, for example, and then everything automatically opens for us in the panel and allows us to make any amendments that we want to make, like so. And I think that's pretty cool. I was incredibly excited to see this. I hope you are too. Do let us know in the comments what you think to this. So I'm just going to save my changes. I don't think I actually saved anything, amended anything even, but I'm just going to save them anyway and then come out of this section here. So once this loads, okay, so I'm going to jump back up to the top bar now and use this drop down arrow, and I'm going to go back to my home page. And when I do this, you'll notice that the top bar stays exactly where it is. Okay, and we've just got the canvas that is refreshing. And here we are in our home page in just a matter of a few seconds. And now we can continue to work. So what we're going to go through now is some Elementor UI and UX improvements. So there's quite a few. I've got a list here, so I can't miss any, hopefully. But the first thing I want to show you, which is incredibly amazing, is we now have the ability to one-click add widgets or elements, whatever you call them, to our page. So let me just drop in a container here, and then let me open up the element panel. Now with this container selected, okay, so you can see that it's highlighted because it's pink here. Rather than dropping widgets in like this, I can now just click them. Oh, must make sure this is selected so it knows where to go. I can just click. And you see that with just that one click, the widget just jumped into the empty container. If I go back to the elements panel, I can do it again. So let's add another heading. And then back to the widgets panel, let's add some text. And as you can see, you know, just the ability to just click a widget and then it automatically jumps into the available space is going to be an incredible time saver. Now, let me explain just a little bit about how this works. So let's delete these. So you'll notice that I did have the container selected. So if I don't select the container, let me just unselect a container. So at the moment, I do not have anything selected. When I click a widget, okay, it will add it to a new empty container. So we need to tell Elementor where we would like our widgets to go. So select the container and then add them like so. And again, I'm going to add another heading. Now, it always adds the widget underneath whatever it is you have selected. So if I select this first heading and then add an image, it's going to add it below that heading but above this one. So just be aware that there is an order to this. So when you add the widgets, just make sure you have selected whatever it is that you would like to add the widget in below. And then you shouldn't have any issues there. Now, I have noticed a slight bug with this today, but this is why we test. This is why we test the beta versions. And let me show you what this is, just so that you are fully aware of this. I have my buttons saved as default. So if I drop this button in, and you notice that I'm dragging this in, you'll see that my button is pre-styled. If I select the button, you'll notice that the save as default styles are not there. So something we are aware of, and we will obviously fix in due course, but just be aware that if you are using save as default, there is a slight issue when using the one-click add to canvas option there. Okay, the next part is the new addition of is a visual indication of page or site parts, and this is incredibly helpful if you're somebody in the past that maybe has had, say, a sticky header that is maybe taken out of the flow. There's several ways to do this, but sometimes a sticky header could be taken out of the flow by using absolute positioning or something like that, maybe a negative margin. It's sometimes been difficult to select that header template. And we've eliminated that issue now with these visible site parts. So as I hover over the header, you can see that it turns green with this overlay, and then it's very easy for me to click the header. And if I scroll all the way to the bottom, you see the same thing happens with the footer. Now, what happens when I click this? Well, what you would expect. Oh, I didn't save. We'll just let this load. My header template now loads, of which I can now amend. Okay, and if I ever want to get back to my page, you can see as I hover over the content of the page, it turns pink with this overlay, and then I can go back to my page like so. So really clear and concise visual instructions on how to get to those different site parts, which is a great addition. Okay, so the top bar has had some enhancements, which is incredibly exciting. We continue to push this, and it's going to be incredible once it's finished. It's already pretty amazing in my opinion. But as I've already shown, we can now add a new page from the top bar. So let's do this again. So I'm going to click Add New Page. And as you saw again, the top bar didn't go anywhere. It was just the canvas that reloaded. It's created this new page for us. It has given us a default name. So I do highly recommend the first thing you do is go into page settings and change the name to whatever you want it to be. So this one could be shop, for example. We won't call it shop because I think we've already got a shop on this website. Let's call it products just to keep it different. Yeah, and then once you're ready to save, you can publish that, and that will update the name like so. So there's two of the top bar enhancements. The fact that the top bar doesn't go anywhere anymore when you're navigating through your website with these options. And then also the ability to add a new page. And also on the left-hand side here, if we select the Elementor logo, you'll now see that this text has been updated to exit to WordPress. So we had changed this originally to managed website, and this was confusing, and a few people were not happy about this. And as always, we listened to your feedback, and we did agree that this should be changed. And this is what we've done. And when we select this, okay, it's going to take us back to whatever it was we were working on. And as you can see, it's taken me to the product page that I've just created here. Okay, so moving on, let's jump back to our home page. Just give me 1 second while this loads. Okay, so here we are. So the next improvement to the UI UX that we're seeing is WooCommerce and WordPress functions, or additional WooCommerce and WordPress functions are now available from within Elementor. So no need to jump into the WordPress dashboard. Now, you're probably thinking, well, what are you talking about? Well, let's have a look. So if we jump over to the site settings, okay, we'll take a look at the WooCommerce one first of all. Now, for this to show, you do have to have WooCommerce installed on your website. So if you've got WooCommerce installed, you'll see this option in site settings. And we have the option to set our cart, check out my account, T's and C's and purchase summary. And you'll see that we now have an option to set the shop page as well. So we can search for the shop page, select it here, save our changes. So no need to jump back into the WordPress dashboard. It can all be done, okay, from here instead. And then finally with this section, let's just jump out of the settings. If we go to the page settings, so we're on the home page here and go to the page settings, you'll see this new option here, which says allow comments. Now, prior to this update, you would have had to have gone back into the WordPress dashboard to enable this. But from here, I can just say, yes, I'm happy to allow comments on this page. And then I can publish those changes and then we're good to go. So that's updated now. So let's come out of the page settings here. We'll just select this container. So we also have a couple of new keyboard shortcuts, which is incredibly useful. If you're not somebody that's using keyboard shortcuts, I highly recommend you learn a few of them. It will really speed up your workflow and your productivity. I'm a big fan of them. So the first one that we have is to quickly open the page settings. And in fact, we could have just used these with the previous demonstrations, but I'm on a Mac here, so I'm going to type Command, but if you are on a PC, it will be Control instead, but the other buttons are the same. So to open up the page settings, I'm going to type Command, Shift, and Y. And as you can see, the page settings panel appeared automatically for me there on the left-hand side. And the second new keyboard shortcut that we've got is to open the user preferences. So here I'm going to type Command, Shift, and U. And as you can see, the user preferences, okay, have opened up for me on the left-hand side here. And again, if you're on a PC, just make sure you type Control instead of Command, and those keyboard shortcuts will work great for you. Okay, so moving on from the UI and UX improvements, we are now going to take a look at the additional styling options in various widgets. So quite a few widgets have had some upgrades, and I think we'll remain here on the home page just because we're here already. But let's add in an empty container like so. And the first widget we're going to take a look at is the tabs widget. So let's just drop this in like so. Now, as you know, this recently went through a huge overhaul where we now have these containers within each tabbed area, which was a fantastic update. Okay, and then whilst we continue to improve the product, okay, this is the next step in the tabs widget here. So for this, I am going to drop down to mobile mode. And when I do that, you can see that the tabbed widget turns into an accordion widget. And this is just going to be a personal preference, whether you like this layout or not. But we wanted to give you more options here. Okay, so actually, let me create some more tabs. I think that would be a sensible thing to do. So this one will be tab 4. This one will be tab 5, and this one will be tab 6. Now, if I drop back down to responsive mode, you can see that our accordion is becoming quite tall. Now, as I already mentioned, it's kind of personal preference how you want to do this. All right, but previous to this update, there was no other option. This is short of applying some custom code. This accordion kind of style layout was the only option that you had available. But now in advanced settings, under the breakpoint, we can actually turn this off. So if we set it to none, you can see that the tabbed layout remains. So let me just show you again. So if I go to mobile, we've got the accordion where the tab titles are stacked on top of one another. But if we disable this, we then see our standard tab layout. Now, they're always going to fall to the next line in this instance. So depending on how much text you have in here and what your styling options are, obviously these are all very similar. So they're taking up the same amount of space. but you may need to play around with the styling here to get the exact result that you want. But we've also thrown in another addition here as well, and you've probably seen it here over on the left-hand side. It's called horizontal scroll. And again, depending on your situation, this could be a very good option for you. So let me just enable this first of all. And as you can see, we're seeing tab 1, tab 2, and then half of tab 3. But if I scroll horizontally with my mouse, I can now select any of those tabs like so. So this is just an additional option for you to configure those tabs with. Yeah, so play around with it. Let us know what you think of it. And yeah, jump onto the official GitHub post and provide as much feedback as you can with what I truly believe is a great addition to an already great widget. So great work to everybody involved in that. Okay, let's delete the tabs widget here. And the next thing we're going to take a look at is the icon widget. So I'm going to drop in an icon widget here. And I'm going to select one of my already uploaded custom SVG icons. So I've got these kind of like database icons here. And if I jump over to the Style tab, I can set the size of this icon. So let's set it to, let's go a bit bigger. Let's set it to 150 pixels. And the container that this is sitting in, I actually want to be set to row and then centered. Now I'm going to duplicate this item a few times. Let's do 4 like this. And the second one, I'm going to update to this icon, which has got like a plus symbol. And if you notice over here, these particular icons are all exactly the same size. So they're 40 pixels by 50 pixels. So they will sit really nicely in line with one another like this. However, the last icon is this one. And this one is 88 by 50 pixels, so a little bit different. And what happens when we insert this one? Okay, it looks a little bit odd because it's not in proportion with the other icons. Well, we can now fix that. So if you have an icon that has a different height or width, okay, we now have an option. So with this last icon selected, I'm going to go over to the Style tab, and then I'm going to select this new configuration here called Fit to Size. And when I turn that on, you can see that it basically removes any empty space, which is fantastic. And if I just minimize that panel again, we now have those icons perfectly sized to one another. So a really great addition there. And just to confirm, okay, this is apparent when you are using custom SVGs. Okay, so if let me just drop in a standard icon. I can spell icon right. Here we go. In the Style tab, so this is just one of the default Elementor icons. Okay, we don't see those options there. It is just with the custom SVG icons like this. Okay, so let's remove that. Okay, so up next, we have a new divider option with our menu widget. So I'm going to scroll to the top of the website here, and then I'm going to open up my header template. I'm going to save the changes on the page that I've made so far. So the menu that I'm using here, okay, is the new menu widget. And as you can see, I have a few links enabled. I've configured the styling for this particular menu, okay, the hover states, the active states, that type of thing. But in the Style tab now, if we scroll down, you can see that we have this new divider option. This is a great addition, okay. I can switch this on. And then the style, sorry, let me just do that again. I feel like I was rushing it. So when I switch this on, okay, you'll notice that there are a ton of more options that appear underneath. So by default, we get this kind of 2-pixel line between each menu item. And let me just hide the panel. You can see it does just sit between the items. Okay, we don't have it at the end there. Like so, we could have achieved something like this with border before, but then we would have had it on the ends. Okay, so this divider is a great new addition if you want to provide just that separation between items. And with it switched on, we have options like style, where we can say we would like a solid, double, dotted, or dashed design. We're going to leave it as solid for ours. We can set the width, okay, so we can have it as thick as we want it, okay. I'm actually just going to set this to 1 because I think it would be a bit overkill otherwise. And then we can amend the height, so we could have it really short, or we could make it really long like this. In fact, I'm going to make it quite long. That's a bit too long. Let's go 25, and then we can set the color as well. Let's go for the accent color, and there we go. We've there we go. Yeah, sorry. We've added the divider, and again, if I minimize the panel here, you can see that the divider lines are there, which is a great addition to the menu widget. So let me just save this, and then I'm going to head back to my home page. And the next styling option upgrade that we've seen is on the image widget. So let me scroll to the bottom again. I could have got rid of some of these sections. I haven't actually used them. I do apologize. But here we are at the bottom of the page again. Let's drop in an empty container, and then we're going to add the image widget. I'm going to do this with 1 click just because, you know, I can. So we've got our image. I think we can definitely choose a more appealing image to be working with here. Let's choose this one here of this family looking out to the sea. So yeah, we've got all our normal kind of image styling options that we want to go through first of all. So we can set the width to 100% if we wanted to fill the width of that container. I think for this demonstration, though, we should probably specify an exact width. So I'm going to set it to 500 pixels wide. And then in the height section, I'm going to also set that to 500 pixels high. Now, I'm sure you've probably played around with this before, the image height. But as you can see, our image has been slightly skewed. So we want to fix that. And we can do that with the object fit option here. The option that we want to choose is cover. And when we do this, you can see that the object position option now appears. And this is what's new. Okay, we can now say where we would like that image to be. Now, by default, it's center. But as you can see with this particular image, we're actually cutting off half the family. So probably not something that we would want to do. In fact, let me just remind you what this image looks like. If I make it wider, you can see there's 2 additional people here. But actually, we're only seeing these 2 guys here. So with the object position option, if we click the drop down, this is very similar, in fact, identical, in fact, to when you set a background image. When you specify the position of that background image, we can say that we would like it to be center left. And by doing so, we now get in all of the subjects in the image here. I'm going to just show you a few more. We could say center right, which is terrible. It cuts off everybody except this little boy. We could say top center. We could say top left. We could say top right. It's just a case of you kind of playing around and finding the right thing that works for you. The right thing for this particular image is center left. And as always, you can see the responsive icon here. So if that was to change for, say, a smaller screen size like this, you can amend it for that as well. I could say, this isn't going to be right, but I just want to show you that it does change. We could say center for this particular image. Okay, but then on desktop, it is center left. So again, another great addition to an already great widget, which is going to really help you fine tune those designs and get them exactly how you want them to be. Okay, so let's remove this container. And let's scroll up. So this is a call to action widget, one of my favorite widgets, very versatile. And, you know, you've got a ton of options when it comes to this widget. One of the slight limitations with it was the styling of the button. Now, if we jump over to the Style tab and then open the button panel, you will see that we've had some new additions here. And this actually exactly matches the styling options that you get with the button widget, which is very exciting. So the additions that I'm talking about are text shadow. We can now apply a text shadow here. We can also apply a box shadow like so. And then finally, we can add padding as well. So these 3 options have been added here, and they now match the exact options that you get with the button widget. So again, another great addition, great to see in the product. Okay, and then finally, the final styling upgrade that we've received, slash bug fix, this one. Again, let's add an empty container like this. And it is to the gallery widget. So if we search for gallery, and if we drop in the gallery widget like so, and then add a few images, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, that will do, and then drop them in and insert the gallery. We have our 8 gallery images here. And if you've used the gallery widget before, you'll understand that you can either say, I don't want anything to happen when they're clicked, or I would like the media file to open, or I would like Lightbox to open. Well, this is specifically about Lightbox. And as you can see by this notification here, you can manage your site's Lightbox settings in the Lightbox panel. And if I click this, okay, we can see all of the Lightbox options here. Now, historically, and even now, these are applied globally. But if we go back to our widget, we can now specify if we would like, oh, it scrolled up. Sorry about that. Let me scroll back down. We can now specify if we would like Lightbox to appear on this particular gallery only, or not on this particular gallery only. So under the link settings, okay, you can see it set to media file, and then Lightbox is set to default. So that will pull in the settings from this area here. But what we can say now is no. And on some installations before, when this was set to no, it would still open the Lightbox. But as you can see, in fact, let me minimize the panel. As you can see, no Lightbox now opens when I click onto these images. So that concludes the styling upgrades that we've seen across various widgets. Let me now jump out of the editor and back to my list. And the next thing that I want to talk about is an important change that has been made to the Loop Carousel widget. So if you are somebody that has applied custom CSS to this widget in the past, to the pagination or navigation, this is definitely something that you are going to want to check. So it introduces a potentially breaking change to the Loop Carousel. So the HTML, yeah, behind the navigation and pagination of this widget. So that's the dots, the fractions, options, and arrows. Okay, it's been updated, and this is being done to be more compatible, okay, with the containers. So a very important update that needed to happen, but just be aware that this change is coming, and this is the time to test it out. So if you know that one of your websites, okay, has some custom CSS applied to the Loop Carousel widget, I'd highly recommend setting up a staging area where you can test this to see if it has in fact impacted your design. So definitely something worth checking out. If you need any more information about this, do not be afraid to ask, okay? Nicholas is always on hand to help, okay? You can ask in the official GitHub post as well, and we'll be happy to get back to you. Okay, so just bear with me 1 second as I get organized. The final piece of information I have for you today is about performance and accessibility. And again, if you need more information about any of this, do not be afraid to ask. But in a nutshell, we've had some slight upgrades with a few of the widgets there. And there are more performance and accessibility upgrades as well. I highly encourage you to check out the official GitHub post as well as the developers blog to find out more information about this. But the first one is to the button widget. They've added conditional role attributes, and this is based on whether the user sets a link on the button or not. So it will apply whether there's a link or not on the button here. The next one is for the accordion and toggle widgets. So the widgets have been upgraded to be compliant with W3C recommendations. And some of you were experiencing some Lighthouse reports where it was being highlighted. Well, you can now rest knowing that they have been fixed. So do run this update and test it out and let us know how you get on with that. And the final upgrade is to the video playlist widget. There's a couple on this one. The loading mechanism for the images has been switched to lazy load, which is going to really help with the page's initial loading time. And the SEO has also been improved. There was a missing alt attribute for the cover images, which has now been fixed, which is great to see. Okay. Let me just remove this screen, and that's me back. And there we have Elementor beta 3.14. I get the numbers right. Your feedback when using these beta versions is incredibly invaluable, not only for us, but also for the entire Elementor community. So please do head on over to the official GitHub post. I believe Nicholas has just shared the link again in the comments for you all. Provide as much feedback there as you can, and it really does help build a better Elementor. So I want to thank you all for watching, and I will see you all next time. Bye now.